I'm Dr. Paritosh Dubey. I have my channel, The Internet Dentist, and we'll be discussing careers in pharmacovigilance, which is one of the industry roles most commonly found in pharma companies. There are other companies which are also there. We have Dr. Manthan Mehta with us. Let me invite him to the discussion as well. We'll be discussing how to make a career in pharmacovigilance. The common trend is that people who have done bachelor's or master's in pharma, or maybe doing MD in pharmacology. So all these people are very well versed with what the industry is all about, what the department of pharmacovigilance is. So let me invite Dr. Manthan Mehta, who is a pharmaceutical physician. He is experienced person in this industry. He has worked in several pharma MNCs, including Boehringer, and currently is working as a medical lead in Novartis. He has got his MD from Topiwala Medical College, which is in Maharashtra. So, Dr. Manthan, if you can see us. Hello, Dr. Manthan.
Sir? Hi, Paritosh. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Paritosh, for that kind introduction. And I hope I'm clearly audible and visible. We are used to saying that these days in the virtual world, right? I think everything starts with, I hope I'm visible or audible. Good evening. And I think I have a complaint with Paritosh. He has not justified, how important pharmacovigilance is. And I'm not sure how many medics are on the call right now, but I would like to remind everyone that even non-medics, the Hippocrates oath that we all take starts with do no harm. And I think pharmacovigilance is one function in the industry which keeps everything in check, right? And without that control function, everything goes for a toss. So whenever we talk of bringing in a new molecule, we talk of safety first and efficacy later, right? So even if you see how the drugs are designed, they start with safety first and then with efficacy. So that's how important vigilance is. And while Paritosh calls me an experienced person, I would like to give a disclaimer. I am not the most experienced in pharmacovigilance. In fact, I'll be very honest with you. I really found it to be very dry and boring till I actually understood what vigilance is in the industry, right? And but I'm happy to discuss about it, share an industry perspective of what pharmacovigilance is and where can you contribute to it, and of course what is a career path for a lot of people, right?
Yeah. So I'll be holding you right here before we proceed with the in-depth discussion and details about the PV as a function in the pharma. So can you tell us, how eligible are the dental graduates? Because most of the people in this call would be dentists and few would be MBBS or MD. So what are the positions? If you can just delineate all those positions, and for which position is the applicability? How does it go? What should be the skills in general that the person should have, and also what should be his qualification, and how to choose how to decide which function is for you, because it itself is a multi-unit department,
right? Right. A lot of questions in one question, Paritosh, but I'll again start with a very interesting Harvard Business Review, which states that you don't need all the qualifications to be a part of a job, right? And I do understand that in India there is a lot of focus and emphasis on the preliminary degree that you hold, and that serves as an entry point, and fortunately or unfortunately, in some way that helps you put a foot in the door, like we say, for any role or any job that you have. But I think a lot is answered in what Paritosh himself said, that pharmacovigilance encompasses a lot of things, And because it encompasses a lot of things, there is a place for everyone, right, to be a part of it. And like I understand, a lot of dentists are on the call, a lot of doctors are on the call. You typically, to just tell you what pharmacovigilance is in very short, it's drug safety, right? And when we talk of drug safety, a simple thing is, say today, and it's very easy now to explain to people what vigilance is today because of the COVID pandemic and vaccines and side effects and everything coming, right? And you are trusting a lot of information that comes out, right? When people say that 0.0001% people developed side effects with a COVID vaccine, where did that number come from, right? Somebody is sitting there analyzing whether this side effect is because of the vaccine or not. And you are that someone if you are in pharmacovigilance, right? So you will be the one analyzing, and actually you have a lot of onus on you to say whether this drug is causing that side effect or it's not causing that side effect. So I think that's where it begins. And for most people at the entry level, particularly for people who are non-MBBS, and for them, I think it begins with a case evaluator. Even for MBBS people, it begins eventually, starts with individual case review, but based on the organizational structure in a company, you may be one level up or down. So, it's not a core blanket that everybody who's a case evaluator has to be an MBBS or BDS, but the way most organizations look at vigilance, they look at people who are medical professionals and, dentists, even your PhDs, they all come under medical professionals. MBBS, MDs, of course, they do. So it categorizes the entire thing. So it starts with that, right? So for example, if just for example, if Paritosh develops fever after taking the booster dose now, how do I know that he's developed the fever because of the booster dose or it's because it's extremely cold in Uttar Pradesh? I don't know. Right, and but I, as a pharmacovigilance case evaluator, will have to evaluate that this is because of that or not. And of course, there are preset pro formas, there are a lot of softwares which will help you do that. But it's that clinical acumen that you will need at that juncture to justify and to determine whether or not this individual case given to me is because of the drug. And that's where typically all roles begin. Yeah, for freshers in the industry, pharmacovigilance industry, they generally begin with that. And the progression, which will I think be a normal question to ask, what will happen, is as simple as that. Today I have one case to evaluate. What if I have 500 to actually find out whether it happens or not? So you begin with an individual case, which is followed, of course, by aggregate reporting, right? And then the way all your corporate positions move, you are individually contributing, then you are contributing a little more individually, then you are a part of a team, then you are managing that team, and then you progress to be a manager, a drug safety physician, eventually leading to be a director, etc. Now here again, you have two options.
Yes, sorry for the interruption. If you speak broadly, and if you try to define two different set of functions, one would be, as per your, whatever you are telling, is that there is one management role and then there is existing a technical role. So I think the licensed graduates, maybe nurses, B farms, M farms, all those would be eligible as a starting point to get into pharmacovigilance. I think management role would be the thing that they should aim for, right? And if someone is a MBBS, yeah, he or she can get into technical aspects, particularly that, a function that I can remember is drug safety physician or a drug safety officer. So is there any difference in drug safety physician, drug safety officer and drug safety scientist? Because these are three key terms, sounding very similar, yet, the eligibility differs a lot in between different medical graduates and also the non-medical.
True, Pratish. Very valid point, I think. And then it does exist that confusion because of the way the terminologies are similar yet different. If you see physician, so typically if you look at safety physician or drug safety physicians, you need to be a physician to become a drug safety physician, right? So that technical know-how increases with probably the educational qualification that you hold. And it becomes a bit simpler if you are an MBBS or an MD to progress into drug safety physician. So for instance, people who are MDs in medicine or MDs in pharmacology will generally begin as a drug safety physician right at the start. Versus people who are non-MDs, they will begin with evaluators, eventually becoming drug safety officers, and like you said, into a management role, leading that team of safety reporting and etc. And when you report safety, drug safety, you become a safety officer. So that parlance can be drawn in what will be the difference between, say, a physician there and an officer there. So you have those two kind of verticals which work into. Also, since you brought it up, I think it's important at some juncture that probably there would be requirements going ahead for the technical domain that you need an additional degree or a qualification, right? And those are times when you probably have entered, and then you can introspect and understand that if I want to progress into this direction because I like the technical aspect, you can go ahead. Yeah, Paritosh.
Yeah. So, is there any possibility? Suppose someone started with a management kind of role. He or she is a life science graduate, plain life science graduate, not a doctor, not MBBS definitely, and he wants to get into technical role, maybe 5 years down the line or 7 years after gaining so much of experience. Is that possible? Because there's no example I have seen till now that someone doing who has a qualification of dental surgery, BDS, and he's now working as a drug safety officer or drug safety physician, because the name itself quotes that physician. A dentist cannot be a physician, right?
Paritosh, there are exceptions to the rule, and if you go classically by organizations, which work in this domain, say if you are talking of these safety reporting organizations like a TCS or these third parties like Cognizant, Accenture, etc., which work in this fashion and these things, you might not see that. But if you look at individual roles within companies, you will definitely see that. I mean, to quote the pharmacovigilance head, so to say, of Boehringer, was a nutritionist by profession. I think, is still a part of the organization, and she set up the entire pharmacovigilance unit for BI India, and has led that unit. She has people who report into her as PV executives, and she runs the India operations for pharmacovigilance completely, and she is not a doctor. So she also is a big part of the ISCR, or the Indian Secretariat of Clinical Research, the council on PV. She is a very integral part of it. So like I said, unfortunately at some juncture the degree may turn to be a barrier, but it's not always the case. So there are options available. If you see that within the scope of the organization that you are working, the vertical movement happens only for people who have that particular degree, you can venture out. And if we talk of venturing out, there are multiple other roles, which are surrounding or on the periphery of PV, which can be taken up, right? You have options. Yeah.
So you really brought a nice point, which I was kind of missing out on. And I even didn't know myself that even there are outsourcing companies, pharma companies can actually outsource their PV function to other companies. And in those companies, there exists a lot of flexibility as per you. That there's nothing limited, and the function, they can always switch to technical role and vice versa whenever possible. So thank you for that. Can we, without waiting or wasting any further time, maybe get to the question and answer part, and then open the discussion panel for more discussions, if at all possible, because people will be waiting for their questions to be answered. Yeah. So there are so many questions. There were few questions which were drafted by me, and then there were few questions, many questions rather, which came through the registration process. So the first question I'd like to ask you is that what prospective career can I have in pharmacovigilance as BDS graduate? So question is very specific, and they're asking about BDS person to get into PV, and how can they grow?
Right. So I think we started off the discussion with that, but if we talk of it typically, and now let's segregate it, right? You have two options. You have the third party pharmacovigilance companies. To name a few, you have your TCS, you have Cognizant, you have Accenture, you have IQVIA, which are actually doing it for other pharma companies, either for the Indian reporting or a lot of reporting for Europe, right? A lot of Europe pharmacovigilance reporting actually happens from India. So just like, we are the IT hub for a lot of things. If you go to Pune and Bangalore and realize we are doing a lot of third-party IT, we are also doing a lot of third-party PV, right, from India, and that is one of your core options, and that's where your options to get into are more. Everybody knows that the TCS of the world can employ a lot of people, so that's where a lot of people enter into. But like we discussed, the second option is either directly you can enter into a company, at entry levels, if that is possible for you, in a pharma company. Small scale, large scale, everywhere, because pharmacovigilance is the norm, and DCGI is coming quite strict on it, and every company will have a mandate to have a small or a big PV unit. And since it's new in certain companies, I think it becomes easy for a BDS graduate to enter into that. But if you take the conventional path, which you must have heard a lot of your seniors or others taking, it classically begin with a case handler kind of a role. Like I explained in the beginning, you are handling a single case. Eventually you become a case evaluator. You are actually now evaluating that case and coming to a conclusion. Moving on, you get into aggregate reporting. Then you are actually looking at aggregate cases and then coming to a conclusion. Then you are, you are a little restricted in the larger companies to become the safety physician, but you have an option to aim into the management roles, where you're now handling these teams of people who are doing that. And then you have your, career transitions which happen. So typically you begin with a case handler, stay there for 1.5 to 2 years, become an evaluator. In the next 3 to 5 years, you can aim to become an aggregate reporter, following which you become a manager or a team lead. And then you can become a senior manager into the organization, etc. And then that managerial journey can go ahead. If you want to branch out at that juncture, thinking that I have either become a manager or enough of this, but I aim to become a safety physician, I don't see that happening here. You can venture out into individual companies where that role may be open for you, because the mandate comes is like we discussed, a life science graduate or a doctor, healthcare professional to be precise, and the dentist falls into that category. So that is one way to look into it. Two, I will address the other bit also, that what if you decide not to do it after a few years? Am I stuck? Do I have to do PV only now? Because I chose that. I went ahead for 3-4 years, and now if I do anything else, I might have to start as a fresher. So no, and we started off saying PV is very big, so you will get placed into something or the other. And where do you think can you go then? So you have options of being data reviewers, being medical reviewers in those same organizations that we spoke about. Like there are clinical trials happening, and then they need healthcare professionals who can review the data, right? So we spoke about how we are testing a lot of data.
Suppose I'm a BDS, I'm a graduate dentist, and I am working into PV for say 1.5 years or 2 years. And then, so what according to you should be the ideal time to make a shift? If you kind of understand that this is not something that I want to continue, or that I want to do, or maybe I don't see my future into PV in pharma. Okay, so where do I want to go, or what all possibilities are there for me after experiencing PV?
So there is no thumb rule of when can you quit, or when do you think it's not working out for you. The first 6 months anyway go into a lot of learning, and if you are there are a lot of softwares which they operate on, so there's a lot of technical know-how that you need to learn. And initially your first 6 months to 1 year in any job or any new function that you take up will generally go into learning that process. It's only after you've learned that process that you will know whether you like it or you don't like it. That's when your actual work begins and when more responsibilities come in. Having said that, I think for any role, 1.5 years, I think is a good enough time to have understood about it and then decided that I don't want to continue. If you don't want to continue, there are options. If you want to still stay somewhere connected to the domain of getting visualizing some clinical data or understanding that, there are a lot of options in the clinical data space, right? There are clinical data reviews, there is clinical monitor which you can become. You can actually stay still associated with clinical trials if you want to. if you don't want to work in that domain, you can shift to something like medical writing. If you still prefer a work where you don't want to be in the forefront, you want to work at something at your own pace, you want to work on in that kind of a domain, you can work on that. You can move into the commercial side of the industry as well if you feel like, so whatever experience you've gained will be considered as industry experience, may not be in that exact domain, but you could opt for becoming a product manager that day. So it's not difficult.
So, Dr. Mehta, if you can, just imagine another scenario where I'm new to the industry and I want to get into, suppose I've applied for a PV role. Okay. So, how should I prepare for the interview? What all skills should I focus on? And how do I know that whether I have those skills or not? Okay. Yeah. So, this is the question.
Very, very good question, Paratosh. I think, and that's something that is, unfortunately not taught in our education system, and you have to hunt for this by calling up people who've interviewed somewhere or finding out, and then even there you have your apprehensions of whether you'll get all the right or wrong answers or not. So I think a good exercise, and I've learned this from my mentors and I give them due credit, is that whenever you apply for a role, there's a job description that comes either with that role or the posting where that job is given. It's nice to scan through it, to see the entire thing and see and understand where can you probably fit. If you feel you have the requisite technical skills, there will be a lot of words you might not understand, right? And when you look at all the skills required, you're like, okay, I have BDS, I have done it from a good institute, I know PowerPoint, I know Excel, I can speak to people well, okay. And then I don't know all the other things that I mentioned here. So say if you have decided, towards the end of your year, and I genuinely feel people should start thinking early, right? Of what options are available to them, and then plan and charter that journey there. If you've not done it so far, I mean, you've not missed the bus, but for people who are still not there yet and, you have time, please make the most of it. There are, options available. Today, there are so many online things available where you can learn. You can learn a lot of it. You can just simply Google 20 questions asked in pharmacovigilance interview and you will know what are the technical questions that come up. As a fresher for any interview, not just pharmacovigilance, for any interview, the expectation of your hiring manager is not that you will be a technical expert. They are not going to ask you how are you going to evaluate a PV case. They want to just see if you have the basic merit of whatever you've written in your CV, whether you're going to be a good fit for the culture of the company and whether you are trainable. So those are skill sets, I think, which you need to demonstrate in any interview. Coming to specific skills, if you feel you've made up your mind that, PV is something I want to try, there are many courses. And I don't particularly endorse any. There are many which are available. Just see if there are reputed institutes which are offering it. There are many online courses. In today's era, everything has gone virtual. So it's easy. You can do them at your own pace. Learn about all the technical skills which will help you to progress early in your induction phase. Your onboarding becomes quicker. In no way does having a PV certification additionally guarantee you a job over somebody who doesn't have a PV certification with the same degree. So I think that you need to be very clear that certificate doesn't give you that. If the institute you are doing it from is claiming for a placement or something, well and good for you. But otherwise, no. But good to learn and know things. There are many things you can learn freely on the internet. If you feel you want to deep dive, want to take up an actual course and, do it like a study methodology, go for it.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Manthan. Another basic question in layman terms, rather than talking anything scientific. How do I know as a employee or as a prospective employee that which functions should I apply for? I'm seeing so many ads. I'm seeing Naukri.com and all those messages that I'm getting through emails. So how to know that I'll do justice to this role, or rather, am I eligible even? Because the JDs might not tell you clearly that they need an MBBS or only MD or only BDS, right? So how do I make sure that I'll be only applying and spending my time into application of relevant jobs only and not to any random PV level job, anything into that department?
Right. So see, one is you of course get a bit of an idea from the way whatever portal has approached you and read about the job description or talk to the HR. And I don't know why people are very shy these days to actually, pick up the phone and talk to the person who's recruiting, right? And I remember just some time back, there was an interesting role that I saw of, and I asked one of my seniors that, can you clarify, what does this part mean? And he was like, why don't you contact the hiring manager? I was like, what, directly? And like, what is there to be ashamed of? The person who needs that role is going to understand about it the best. So that is one way of doing it. Two, it's again, the concept of you are barking up the wrong tree. If it's written clearly that I'm only going to hire an MBBS and you are a BDS, don't apply. Because they're not going to even look at the CV, right? It's wastage. It's not like, chalo try kar lete, kuch na kuch mil jayega. It doesn't work that way. If they've written it's mandatory, it's mandatory. If not, they will always put a slash, or they'll say, no, all others can apply, or MBBS is desirable. There's always a difference between what is desirable and what is mandatory. So if it's desirable, you apply. If it's mandatory, you don't have to apply that. Two, you will not know, exactly what that role entails until you talk to somebody who's in that role. And please make that as a habit to, approach people. Use LinkedIn just the way people, stalk a lot of influencers on Instagram. There are influencers on LinkedIn, and Paritosh is one of them. So you can look at, their profiles. You can look at connections from there and see where their career has progressed. What have they done over the years? If you actually want to take up a role in any function, the best thing to do is speak to people at 3 different levels in that function. One, who has been in that role for 1 to 2 years. 2, somebody who's in that role for 5 years. 3, a veteran who's there for 10 years plus. You will get a very clear perspective. And always start by asking, what is the downside of these roles? Because the plus, right? The plus is advertised on your JD. So you have to ask, what is the downside? Because then you will know that what will I be doing when I enter into this role? What will I be doing when I, are a few years into the role? And what if I decide to continue that for a long part of my, professional life? Where will I be? So take these general tips rather than, focusing too much on the technical know-how. It is important, but you can learn everything. I think I've heard in a PV conference a professional tell me that it takes 2 months to learn all Argus and all the softwares that EU uses to understand everything. It just takes 2 months. So nobody's going to not hire you because you don't know something about it. Everybody knows you'll learn on the job, because 70% learning always happens on the job for everything, right?
Right. So the next question is very sought after. I see these questions very frequently. However, I don't feel like, there is no definite answer for this. However, the question is that, what is the salary scenario in pharmacovigilance sector?
Yeah, I know, and that's what also fosters a lot of discussions and polls on LinkedIn. If you see, whether salaries should be written with the job posting or not, and eventually things will become more transparent, but till then we will have to depend on what people have said. Again, a disclaimer, I may not have the exact figures in place. Whatever I know is hearsay from people, because I haven't seen CTCs of people really. But what I've heard and what I've also seen on some ad posts is that you start with something around a 3.5 to 4, maybe as a case handler in the current times. And then it starts progressing. So if you are an MBBS or something, maybe you start with a 6 is what I've heard. But again, numbers vary. There is inflation, there is demand, there's demand supply, there's matching that thing. There's also, if you have prior experience and other factors which a company takes into place. But you will anyway know about it if you talk about it. But it's good to ask a bracket. Sometimes, people don't reveal CTCs till you have reached advanced stages of interviews. But it's always easier to ask for the bracket even at the beginning. I think that's something that they reveal, that, we are looking at somebody in this bracket, if not the exact figures. So it probably does not start at the highest level. People grow well, right? I've seen it's a steady growth in people who are taking it up, and then, there's always sky is the limit in any role, I feel, you. So,
Absolutely,
uh,
absolutely. So the next question is very pertinent to the current situation. There are many dentists who have left their practice or who are otherwise not able to continue their practice because of so many reasons. So if someone is a dentist having 5 6 years of experience, okay, and he wants to pursue or get an entry level job into pharmacovigilance, and he is not sure that he also wants to practice at the same time, wants to do both. So would that be possible?
So that depends. Everybody wants to have the cake and eat it too, but it depends on organizations. There are larger organizations do not permit such dual jobs officially. You have a lot of statements to be submitted that you're not doing, and if you are going to do this, after your working hours, say you're working 9 to 5, and then you have your clinic from 7 in the evening to 9 in the evening, and you want to continue that, you have to declare that conflict of interest. And I know I stem where this comes from, that in this work from home time, a lot of people think that if there's less work here, I can manage both and juggle between things. It's your own risk that you take it. I wouldn't advise that you do something like that. It's always best to declare and do something, right? And if your company policies allow that, it's well and good that you want to try and do both the things. But sometimes I think also keep work-life balance, right? If you do your full job, then you want to do the clinic bit also or something, it gets challenging. Maybe you could manage it on weekends or whatever, but please check with the company what you want to do about it. So.
Right, right. So, Dr. Mehta, I think from my personal observation, I feel that PV role is more of a, gives you a better opportunity to balance your work with your life. Is not as much hectic. You don't have any client facing, function. You don't have to go into the field and all. So, how is PV as an opportunity for women, for the females, and is work from home possible for this lifelong? Or maybe what's the extent till this can be continued working from home on PV?
True. I think we shouldn't gender specify anything like this. We have a lot of women leaders who manage it and juggle both. But I understand. I understand from an Indian cultural perspective, there is always a concern sometimes about traveling and field jobs, and versus that here you have that comfort of your home and can do things. A lot of organizations have gone work from home because of the ongoing and ever continuous pandemic now. So that option is always there. Some companies have moved to hybrid roles. What I hear from a lot of my friends and colleagues is that some companies have shut down 2 floors and 3 floors and given 800 and 1,000 employees work from home directly. So yeah, work from home is there. You have a bit of a relaxed thing in terms of you don't have erratic schedules because you're not customer facing in any way. So it's internal people you're dealing with, and hence your timing is always pertinent to your working hours and can be managed that way. So it gives you that flexibility and quality of life. I've heard a lot of companies just have it like you have to clock 8 or 9 hours, and it can start at any time. At 8 in the morning till 11 in the night, you can just include and do it. So a lot of those options have happened, and we have another person.
Right.
So
Hi, guys.
I think Dr. Manthan already knows Dr. Ronak as well, and he is also a pharmaceutical patient. He's a colleague as well. So, what's your perspective on PV as overall function in pharma, and how do you see the scope of PV going ahead? And specifically talking about the young fresh graduates, MBBS and BDS, and this because counseling rounds are also getting delayed. People are frustrated. So, do you think switching from clinical to this industry kind of role, so is it worth it, and how do they see their career growing in this?
Firstly, I would like to say it was a wonderful discussion. Dr. Manthan has actually replied to all the comments very nicely, and he's given you a very clear perspective on how exactly the industry works and how PV going forward will be for anybody who's thinking about taking it as a career option. Secondly, for what you are saying is that is true again. For like the times have changed now, and a lot of like in the COVID times going forward also, people have been thinking about getting into non-clinical roles more frequently, and those are definitely very much important going ahead as well. So going from a clinical perspective to a non-clinical one will be a shift for all the people. Like we have this herd mentality since a very long time. Like whenever you get into medicine, you never think about the non-clinical perspectives of medicine, but there's a huge industry that goes along, which actually brings the molecules which the doctors will prescribe. So indirectly you are actually touching upon millions of lives without actually meeting them in person. So it's a very different perspective to take on, and nothing to actually feel less about. Then when it comes to pharmacovigilance, again, I feel for people who really want to have a work-life balance, who really want to have a foot in the industry somewhere where they can also, they like the corporate feel of how medicine can be. So you will still be in touch with the medicine side, the science side of, because that is what we are all connected with. Like science is the first love of all of us. That is why we actually got into biology, and then we got into medical science, and that is what has, pushed us going forward all these years. And if that love is always going to be there, it is much better to, and if you're not enjoying the clinical part of life, so many people do prefer that over anything else. So you would like there will be people, there will be doctors, our colleagues, who will definitely not complain about the 36 hours of duties and all the all the actual scenarios that go around in actually serving people in the clinical life. But if somebody is looking for a way out, and maybe there are, like, many of my friends also went through this, there is a transition for a lot of people thinking that this might not be the thing that I want to do all my life. Many people do have, they actually get into the clinical part. There is not everybody who is much more comfortable with it. So I feel PV would be a very good option, and something that they can actually get a taste of a corporate life. They can understand and still be in touch with the scientific aspects. So yes, your clinical acumen will be tested again. It will still be interesting for you to actually assess the cases, see if the drug is actually causing the adverse reactions, or is it just any comorbidity that the patient is already having. So you are at a par to actually assess those and give your clinical guidance. And going forward, again, it's a very good field for, it might, for anybody. I would not segregate any of our medical colleagues into BDS or maybe Ayurveda or homeopath. It doesn't matter. Everybody, like, we all know how the Indian system works when it comes to actually giving people a chance to become medical professionals. So yes, we all are medical professionals, and yes, there will always be some sort of barrier when it comes to the industry, and that has always been there. But I would still suggest that it will be like maybe one step extra that you have to take, but you will still, like, we all will reach the same same destination going forward. So nothing to feel low about, I would say.
Well, that was a very beautiful message from you, Dr. Ronak, and I hope even the industry sees the way, you see things, and it's really nice to connect with you as a. Any other point, Dr. Manthan, or maybe Dr. Ronak? Anything in addition to tell to our audience, or we can wrap it up?
Just
Right.
one thing I think that Manthan did not go upon was the MPH part, I feel. I feel for a lot of BDS people, a very good option would be to do a master's in public health, because personally, I have seen many of my friends be in very good organizations. Like, they get a lot of scope going forward if they have an additional degree with their BDS. So maybe it could be an MPH, or maybe it could even be an MBA in pharmaceutical medicine, or anything like that, that can actually help them more. So there are two kind of things: either you start with the experience and you grow as the industry, like with the industry, but yet again, after a while there will be a gap for you, and I feel an MPH or maybe an MBA can fill that gap. But firstly, like, maybe for freshers, I would say it's much better to actually try PV or get into the industry and see if you really like it. You might not like it. Not everybody will be built for that, because PV, you have to actually it's kind of a 9 to 5 job. Like not everybody will be okay with that. So if you are okay with it, because there are many parallels that go around the non-clinical aspect as well. There is medical affairs too, which we all are a part of. There is always PV, there is medical writing, there is also the clinical trials aspect. So everybody should, like, it all depends on the personality and the interest of a person as well, if they can actually be a part of this industry first. So maybe they can start off with it, see, get a taste of it, and then maybe decide if they actually want to do an MPH or an MBA, which will definitely help them going around in the industry. And if not, then maybe they can always have a transition. Yes, Dr. Parikar.
One quick question for you, I mean, both of you. Since because you were telling already that you can go for MPH and or maybe you directly get into PV, right? I mean, get the full experience. So, what do you suggest? First, gain some qualification, do some courses, and then get into PV. I mean, do whatever you want to. I mean, suppose I was planning long for getting into MBA or doing a MDS maybe, or if I was a MBBS, I plan to do a MD in pharmacology. So, should I wait for completing my education or higher post graduation and all studies, or should I rather choose to get into the industry, work for some time, gain some experience, and then land up into a job? So what is a better way? I mean, both of you can answer that.
So there are there are pros and cons to both, Paritosh, and there is no exact answer, right? You yourself, I think, are a good example of doing something while on the job and then again changing it, right? If I remember correctly, you did your MHA while you were an MSL, and now you're going to pursue an MBA after quitting a role in medical affairs. So there is, and that's I think a fundamental problem that all of us have, is we want all the right answers right at the start. We are all too afraid to fall, to do anything which is outside the book, and we're like, okay, this is perfect. I have 4 degrees. Now nobody can stop me from having the best career in my life. That is not true. So there is an ideal world and there is a real world, and we somehow want everything to be ideal. So there is no ideal way. You can be doubly sure. See, it's up to you. You feel you want to take up an MPH, and you want to try only after a master's, you can do that. If you feel no, I want to do it, take a 1 year thing in PV, I'll do an MPH or an MBA later, come back maybe in PV, or maybe branch out to something else of what interests me while doing that course. So you can't always be too certain of whether you want to do this only and you want to do that. And everybody is smarter in retrospect. Yeah, so ये किया होता तो बहुत better होता is what all of us think. But it's not that. It's about in that moment, in that situation, I think you do what is right for you at that moment. Somebody needs to start earning, or somebody needs to start their career right after they graduate. So be it. You can always study later. So, you're smiling.
This is very true. Like, this is how it has
There's so
been.
many things that you could do parallelly, and also there's one option that you do the weekend programs and continue to work throughout the weekdays. So there are so many things, and that's the basic instinct. I mean, my conception was that unless I've done my MHA, unless I'm MBA after BDS, I won't be able to make it into the industry. Even if I'm doing something, I won't be able to get to that height, right? So that is the general conception, and we are basically, afraid to even apply for those roles. We don't know whether we'll be selected or not, and that's a big question. We need to come across that barrier and cross that, and then maybe actually apply for it. Try ourselves. Even we cannot decide without even trying, and tell that we didn't get the job or something, and we cannot do this or
Right.
that. Yeah, please,
And
Ronak,
it's
continue.
not even just about trying, like, because there will be always, like, as it's the corporate, and they'll always say that will not be hiring freshers, we'll always be needing someone experienced. So don't be disheartened because of that. There will always be companies who will give you a chance, but if you stop applying and if you don't actually get into it, there is no second thing about that. But anyway, it is something that you need to keep on trying, and don't be disheartened if you don't actually clear the rounds and everything. It is not like you do not require 10 yeses, you just require one yes, right? So you might get 10 no's, but you'll get one right yes whenever it is coming. So just keep on going for it. That's all that matters. And yes, as Manthan also said correctly, it doesn't matter. Like you can, if you can start right away, you start right away. If you want to do, get an additional degree now and then start, it's all up to you. It all depends on each person as well. Firstly, actually getting a chance to also do it is a privilege, I would say. Not everybody does get into the industry with being a fresher, because like I said, many of the like many of the companies, because when I started as well, many of the companies did demand an experience, which they always require. Like 5-6 months ka bhi chalega, but thoda experience chahiye. We don't want to train you from scratch, is what they say. So and I've been talking to a lot of candidates as well, and they also have been facing this. So a few of them, they shifted and they kind of finally gave up, and then now they've started their MPH or something like that. So yes, that also would definitely help, because that is why I said ki on the long run it will definitely help you if you have an additional degree, if you are in BDS. For MBBS professionals, that is not the case. It not entirely. Like then MBBS people will also be like, "Arey, hum to MD pharma nahi hai. The industry demands MD pharma." So that, kuch
Right.
everything will always be less, you know. So you can't sit with just that perception and actually stay along that. So you have to find your own path, and I would just say you just need to clear the interviews. That is something that is that can be done with confidence, I feel. Not everybody, and many people feel that maybe I'm not ready for it, and that's how it is. But it's just about the interview. If you clear the interview somehow, because they know you're a fresher, they know you don't have the skills, so they will train you. They take 6 months to train you for that. So 6 months, like literally go into just training you about the softwares, about all the processes that are involved, about actually the client that you're working with, and so many other things as well. So they know that you are not a seasoned professional, and you will require some
Absolutely.
time, and they are ready to give that time to you. It's just they should feel that you are, you know, they can trust you for that. So you just need to clear the interviews nicely, confidently, and then you can get your foot into the industry. After that, maybe a few years down the lane, whenever you feel right, if needed, if you feel, go for an additional degree. If not, no need for that. But yes, I just want to say that just keep on trying. That's all. Like even if
Right.
a few interviews don't go good, they'll always be a good stepping stone going forward, because you learn from the mistakes that you have done before. Like that happened with me as well. And somehow then, like I said, you just need one good yes, right? So it doesn't matter how many no's that you get. So focus on that one yes, that will come right along, at the right time when you actually need it. So keep trying.
Right. So although we think at times, that we might not have the right qualification, we might not have the right technical skills, but with patience and with time, we may be able to earn it. We may be able to get those skills, because in my first company itself, I was trained almost for 5 months, doing nothing. They expected nothing from me, and all they did was train me, and it was so so good. And that's the thing. I mean, because of that experience and because of those trainings, I was able to perform well, and we shouldn't hesitate to apply. Right. So I guess this is it. And thank you both of you. Thank you, Dr. Manthan. And any ending points in anything for the audience, or otherwise we'll wrap it
I think we've spoken enough, and I don't know if I am between them and dinner, but they are definitely between me and dinner now. So thanks so much, Paritosh, for setting this up. Thanks, Ronak, for joining in and sharing that perspective of somebody who's actually worked in PV and then started things that way. So and thanks for everybody who's joined, and good night to all of you, and happy to help if you need any. Thank you.
up. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Ronak, Dr. Manthan. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye. Take care. Stay safe.